It is the winter of 1223, and Francis is in a small village clinging to a mountain in the valley of Reti in the middle of Italy. The place is called Greccio. Above the houses there is a wood of holm oaks and a cave in the rock, and there the friar often stops to pray, far from the noise. Christmas is near. Perhaps 2 weeks remain before the Holy Night, and an idea comes to Francis that seems natural to us, and that then was not natural at all. He wants to celebrate the birth of Christ not with words alone, but by making it visible, by making it something the poor people of those valleys can touch. The one who tells us this is the oldest and most reliable source we have, Thomas of Celano, who writes the first life of Francis just 2 years after his death. And it is he who reports the words with which the saint prepares the thing. Francis calls a man of the place, a certain John, a person of good name, and tells him to go ahead and make ready what he will ask. He wants to relive the memory of the child born in Bethlehem, and somehow to see with the eyes of the body the hardships of his poverty, how he was laid in a manger, how between the ox and the donkey he was set upon the hay. He does not ask for statues. He does not ask for figures of wood. He asks for a real manger, real hay, and 2 living animals brought to the spot. We must stop on this, because here lies the point that the tradition of the nativity scene has almost erased. The ox and the donkey are told by no gospel. They do not appear in the 2 texts that recount the birth, the ones of Matthew and of Luke. They come from an ancient reading of the prophet Isaiah, where it is said that the ox knows its owner and the donkey the manger of its Lord, and from later writings not received into the Bible. Francis does not put them there to invent a charming detail. He puts them there because he wants the warmth of the animals, their breath, the smell of the stable, the hard reality of a winter night in a cave. He wants the poverty of God to be seen, to be felt, to be truly cold. The night arrives. Thomas describes it with care, and from there we can rebuild it. The friars hurry in from the nearby places, and with them the men and women of the surrounding country climb up to the wood, each one carrying his own light. They make ready torches and candles, and in the darkness of the mountain that line of trembling flames lights up the night that once, the chronicler says, lit all the days and the years with its star. They sing. The voices of the peasants and those of the friars mingle, and Thomas writes that the wood rang with voices, and the rock answered the festive songs. Above the manger heaped with hay the Mass is celebrated, and that rough stone becomes for one night an altar. Francis is not a priest, and this must be remembered because it explains what he does that night. He stays beside the manger dressed as a deacon, and after the singing of the gospel he preaches to the people. Thomas recounts that his voice was sweet, strong, clear, and that speaking of the king born in poverty he called him, with an almost childlike tenderness, the little child of Bethlehem. Before him there are no theologians and no nobles, but shepherds, woodcutters, peasants, people who cannot read and who have heard the mysteries of the faith spoken in a tongue they do not understand, the Latin of the Church. To them, Francis gives a thing they can at last grasp with the senses, a stable, a manger, 2 beasts, a cold they know well because it is their own. There is then a particular that Thomas reports and that he himself sets down with caution, saying that it was a vision told by a man who was present, a knight named John. This man would have seen sleeping in the manger a child without life, and Francis draw near and waken it as if from sleep. The chronicler gives it as the testimony of one man only, not as a certain fact, and so it is best to take it. What is documented instead is what remained of that night. The hay of the manger was kept, and it is said that sick animals were healed by eating of it, and that many took a little of it out of devotion. It was not a theater, it was not a show for entertainment. It was a new way of praying with the body, of putting people inside the scene instead of leaving them to watch from outside. Francis had understood something deep about human beings, that they believe more in what they see and touch, and that the poverty of God, if it stays an idea, slips away, while if it becomes a cold stable on a December night, it enters the bones and never leaves again. From that night of Greccio, slowly, across the centuries, was born the custom that still today fills the homes of half the world, the nativity scene, the birth rebuilt in small so that every family may have it before its eyes. Francis was by now 52 years of age, or a little less, and his body was worn out by his labors and by the sicknesses caught in the East. Only 3 years were left to him. In the year after Greccio, he would withdraw to another mountain, higher and harsher, La Verna, for fasting and for prayer. And up there, toward the end of summer, something would happen upon his own body that the sources struggle even to put into words. In the next chapter, we will climb with him onto that rock,